Good morning and welcome to Accounting with Confidence. Today's video show is going to be a little different. I am not going to be talking about QuickBooks today. I'm going to talk about some mindset things as we're rolling into a new year. I just wanted to share some of what I am thinking about. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Beth Whitworth, and I own a CPA firm in St. Louis, Missouri. And what I envision for me to be doing is to teach everybody about how to do accounting and QuickBooks and bookkeeping and all things related to that in building a business or working inside a business, to do everything with confidence. But today I wanted to talk a little bit, like I said, about mindset. And what I'm going to share with you is really what 25 years of tax seasons and 25 years of marriage have taught me about mindset, really. And so let me just set a picture for you. 25 years ago, I was beginning my very first tax season. I was working in the first CPA firm I've ever been in. I was not yet a CPA. And about 45 days into it, I got engaged. Thrilled. Oh my gosh, unexpected. Got engaged on Valentine's Day and continued to work through tax season. Tax season was tough. It was my first year. I had not really been experienced in the practical skills of working on tax returns. And though I liked it, and really taxes is what I had always wanted to do, it was hard. So move forward to around just before the April 15th deadline, we bought our first house. So we got engaged in February, we bought our first house. We essentially, I was scheduling, to get things moved in shortly after the tax season ended. But wait, there's more. What else was I doing 25 years ago? I started immediately after tax season prepping on my own to sit for the CPA exam for the first time. And back then, the CPA exam was only offered 2 times a year. You could sit for it in May, and you could sit for it in November. So May was out. I had just worked through a tax season. There was no time to study during the first part of the year. And so immediately, as following tax season, I began studying for the CPA exam. And I was studying on my own, and I was still working full time. And we were, moved into a new house, and we were planning a wedding. We were planning to get married in November of that year. So short engagement, and we would be married before my very next tax season. But really, who would think that you should sit for the CPA exam for the first time 2 weeks before your wedding? But that is exactly what I did. In addition to that, I didn't register on time. And so I ended up having to take the exam out of town. I had to drive 3 to 4 hours and take it in Springfield, Missouri instead of St. Louis, Missouri. So, at the time, money's tight. I'm newly engaged. I just bought a house. I'm in my first, real CPA job. And I stayed at my grandparents' farm with a coworker, and we commuted into Springfield, Missouri for the exam, which at that time you took all 4 sections. You took it, I believe it was over 2 days, and it was all handwritten. There was a lot to it. And 2 weeks after that, I got married, and here I am 25 years later. And let me tell you, there have been many, many, many tax seasons in between. Some have been great, some have been terrible, some have just been, I don't even remember it, like the first tax season that my daughter was with us. She was born in July, and so when tax season rolled around, she was about 5 or 6 months old. And I do not remember that tax season at all. I mean, it was one of those things where tax season, it's got extra hours. And whether you work in this industry or not, everybody has seasons. They have very busy seasons sometimes in their lives. And what I have found that I can do that isn't very healthy is that I start to feel very negative about it going into it. And I think, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. In this tax season, for example, we are into our third tax season after the biggest tax law change since 1986. And by this time, we would have thought, okay, we're getting used to this. We've got lots of new rules. We've got calculations that we're starting to get familiar with. And then, boom, the pandemic hit and legislation last year just started rolling out. We have payroll tax changes. We've had, changes to for lending. We've had so many new rules and things that are structured. We've had changes to retirement. And immediately I thought, oh my gosh, so much for an easy tax season. Not that any of them are ever easy, but there are some that should roll along just more normal. And this one, it's not going to be. So as I started to dwell on the fact that it's going to be tough, it's going to be new, it's going to be, difficult to explain the changes and understand all the new laws, and there's a good chance the more legislation is going to come out during the season. I started to have a mindset shift, and I've worked very hard in the last few years on working on personal and professional development, and have been to some conferences, and so I heard at one point, and I make myself go back and think about this, that there's very few things in this life that you can control. And it's become very apparent for everyone, especially in these last few months and weeks even, that you don't have control. You don't have control. But what you do have control over is your attitude and your effort. Your A&E. Not the network, but your attitude and your effort. And so last weekend, as I was working on some new things in my business, I started to think about that. And I thought, what if I came into this tax season thinking it's going to be great? What if I came into tax season and thought, it's going to be hard, but I can do it? And I started thinking, what was I doing 25 years ago? Oh my goodness. 25 years ago, I was getting engaged. I was working in my first tax season. I bought a house. I studied for the CPA exam. I planned a wedding. I did all those things, and it was hard. And I do not remember it being negative. I don't remember it being something that I look back on and say, it was the most terrible time of my life. No, I enjoyed it. So I thought, okay, what do I need to do to come into this tax season with the things I can control, my attitude and my effort? And on that journey of just figuring out what that would look like, I do a few things. And I do a few things as a routine every day that I thought I would share with you, and that maybe it could help you through some of your busy seasons. So the first thing I do, and I learned this through Rachel Hollis, and whether you follow her, don't follow her, like her, don't like her, she's a best-selling author. And one of those things I do every morning is I list 5 things I'm grateful for. Not necessarily big things, not things like, I'm grateful for, my health and my marriage, but things that I'm grateful for in the last 24 hours. And sometimes, that's making a good cup of coffee. Sometimes that's that I got excellent sleep the night before. Sometimes it's that I'm grateful for trying a new recipe or getting to talk to my daughter on FaceTime. It's the little things, but I start every morning with a gratitude practice. And by doing that, it starts to set the tone very early on in the day that there are things to be grateful for, no matter what's going on in your life or in the world. It's been a little crazy. And so that grounding gratitude practice is something that has been very helpful for me. The second thing I do every morning is I set my plan for what 3 big things I need to get done every day. And most of the time it is relating to, one of my businesses, but sometimes it's something, personal. I'm a quilter. And so sometimes I need to put on that big 3 that I'm going to get that project out, and I'm going to take some time to spend on something that just gives me pleasure, that really makes me feel like I'm creative and accomplishing something. And sometimes I need to put that on my big 3, but I put 3 things I need to get done. And when I get distracted, and when I get a phone call or I get an email or I get something else that needs to happen, and I need to come back to, oh my gosh, how am I going to get everything done? I can go back to those 3 things and get back to it and say, my day will feel accomplished if I've gotten those 3 things done. The third thing that I work with and I struggle with, and I honestly believe that if I made it a better habit, that I would get so much more done, is a process called time blocking. And that is, so I take those big 3 things and I put them in my calendar. And I set an alarm to when to start them and when to finish them, so that I don't just have an open-ended time frame to work on something, because we all know that you can grow anything you're working on to fit the time you have and then some. This also keeps me from procrastinating maybe one of those things that's on my list that I'm not real excited to work on. And so once I've picked my big 3, I actually still write in a paper calendar, but I do put into my electronic calendar the time block, and I set those alarms on my phone. Some people say you should, not work on something for, more than 50 minutes straight. For me, okay, if I know I have 2 hours to work on this and I get it done in 30 minutes, then I have an hour and a half that I can either move on to my next item so that all my big 3 get done, ahead of time. And maybe I do have that extra time to take to go pull out a project and work at my sewing machine. Or I have that time to then, go back and reflect on something else, to work on me, to work on those distractions that came in that I had put off. So those are my 3 things. Gratitude every morning. Pick the big 3 things that you're going to work on each day. I know you have more than 3 things on your list. So do I. But you need to decide what you're going to focus on. And by choosing those things either the night before or the very first thing in the morning, you are able to really start to focus faster so that you don't have a big delay in starting your day. And then the third thing is working on that habit of time blocking. Give yourself a set amount of time to work on something. And oftentimes I find that those projects that I have been kicking down the road, the kick the can method, when I finally put them in my calendar, block the time to do it and work on it, 1, I feel like I'm accomplishing something amazing. And 2, it almost never takes as much time as I block for it. So those are my tips. So attitude and effort. The attitude comes from your mindset. A lot of that is the gratitude, and the effort is taking the time to set your priorities and taking the time to focus on things and understanding that you are in control of those things. It's taken me several years to work these practices into my daily life. But I find that when I do that, when I do them consistently, I am so much more productive. And my 25 years in the industry, my 25 years of marriage have both taught me that, there are seasons in your life, both personal and professional, and that you are able to get through hard things. And you can get through them with a great attitude and create a great memory. So I go back to those 25 years. I think of all those things we did in 1 year. And by the way, I did pass 3 of those 4 sections on the CPA exam and only had 1 left to take the following May. So, I was, by the time I took that last section, I registered on time. I was already married. I had 2 tax seasons under my belt, and it felt great. So that's what marriage and tax seasons have taught me is, you can control your attitude and your effort, and that's all. So you can control your reaction to things, and you can control a couple other things, but mostly your attitude and effort will direct how you get things done. All right. I hope this helps everybody. Remember, you can always get back to any of these video shows by going to www.wlx.com/blog, BLOG. See you all next week.